Since being chartered on July 7, 1896, the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America and the state of Tennessee have excelled at their mission of historic preservation, education, and patriotic service over the last 125 years. In the organization's formative years, the Dames planned an exhibit of colonial relics for display in the History Building at the 1897 Tennessee Centennial Exposition. Other philanthropic endeavors included providing funds for improving rural schools, offering scholarships for Native American nurses, and supporting educational programs for immigrants seeking citizenship. The Tennessee Dames chose Travelers Rest as their state headquarters in 1954. Were it not for the vision of the Tennessee Dames when they purchased the property, 1,000 years of history at Travelers Rest would be lost. Women have been motivated by many factors to join the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America in the state of Tennessee over the last 125 years.
I love that the Dames have so many members that have that connection to their mothers and their grandmothers who were also Dames before them.
My Dames ancestor is a man named Evan Ragland, who came in through Virginia, and we have several ancestors who would qualify in the Dames. They mostly came through Virginia, but there were several lineage information packages already filled out, and I just had to sign when it was time to become a Dame. The application had been long filled out.
Becoming a Dame was a family tradition for some women, while for others it was a new journey.
I did not have a mother or grandmother that was a member of the Dames, so I had to create my own genealogy going back in order to make the connection and join about 5 generations back. So I was able to hook on to somebody who had already joined. So it meant that much to me to spend the time to go through the records and make those connections, because I was very much inspired to be a member of the Dames because of their wonderful mission.
After acquiring Travelers Rest in 1954, the Tennessee Dames began the hard work of restoring the historic home. These efforts consisted of having numerous highly regarded preservation and decorative arts professionals from around the country offer their expertise and guidance as to how the exterior and interior portions of the historic home and structures should be restored and interpreted.
My mother talked about people coming when they were building the lower gallery. The lower gallery was in really bad shape. Both galleries needed some big-time help. They had an architect, Mr. Waterfield, to design the look of it, who was just a local friend, but an excellent architect. I remember a picture of my grandmother standing on the porch, and half of the balustrades are done and the other half are being sawed, and here's the man in the yard sawing them. She's looking like a general running the campaign, sort of thing.
The Tennessee Dames' early preservation efforts enabled people of all ages to explore Travelers Rest. This history includes archaeological investigations of the prehistoric Mississippian Native American community, Judge John Overton's early contributions to the development of Tennessee and his relationship with Andrew Jackson, the lives of the enslaved individuals who labored on the property, the Battle of Nashville during the Civil War, and how later Overton descendants, the Dickinson family, started an Arabian horse farm at Travelers Rest.
I love the Dames' mission of preservation and education. I love that Travelers Rest very much carries that out day in and day out right here on the property, telling the story of the peoples that have lived here, all the way from the Mississippian peoples all the way up through the more modern times of the Overton family that lived here up through the middle part of this past century.
In the 1940s, the Overton family sold the home. It would eventually come into the possession of the L&N Railroad, which sold the property to the Tennessee Dames in 1954. From this point forward, the focus of the Tennessee Dames' work at Travelers Rest has been preservation and educational programming.
That feeling is something that I have always wanted to transfer to children. And that really is the reason that I'm involved at Travelers Rest, because I really came into it as a teacher. And I get a huge amount of excitement, and I know dames have heard me say this in speeches I've given for years, how much I love seeing a child in a neon t-shirt talking to a woman cooking over a fire. It just pushes all my buttons.
I also love that people of all ages, from the youngest TR camper of 7 all the way up to anyone of any age that can come out here and see it and enjoy it, are getting to hear those stories. Those stories based on the holdings here at Travelers Rest that are based on the knowledge that you have of the people that have lived here.
In 1989, the Tennessee Dames demonstrated visionary leadership by creating the Community Board to reinvigorate passion for Travelers Rest outside of the Dames organization that would align with the volunteer spirit of the early Dames preservation and fundraising efforts.
And the other thing that was happening is, as the people involved trying to fund Travelers Rest were going to the corporations and the companies and the different organizations around here to get a grant or to get a donation, they were being given the response, why would I support an organization or a house I can't be part of?
By inviting members of the community to join the Travelers Rest Board of Directors, the Dames were able to utilize new expertise to maintain the property and develop the interpretation with the same vigor as they had done from the beginning.
And this was partly the funding and partly the needing the different kinds of expertise, to have an accountant and to have an engineer and to have a lawyer. There just were not those professions represented within the Dames membership.
This visionary decision encouraged the local community to become more invested in Travelers Rest and provided opportunities to develop partnerships to expand the ability to preserve the history while still relying on the knowledge and passion of the Dames organization. The Community Board model has since been adopted by other Dames properties around the country.
The point is that everybody can support history and the study on a very high level of history. But just because you can't be a Dame doesn't mean you can't join the mission.
The Tennessee Dames' efforts to preserve and interpret Travelers Rest reflect the national organization's mission of preservation, education, and patriotic service.
The impact of Dames all across the country doing this same thing in wherever they are with whatever property they are connected with is just an amazingly powerful thing, and I think truly necessary in the United States right now, in a time when we are living in a very historic period.
The Great American Treasures program is composed of more than 60 historic sites that date from the 1500s to the early 1900s. Together, this coalition of sites tells the story of the development of our nation.
You look at things like Great American Treasures, which is a fantastic mission that the Dames have undertaken and just recently rolled out, where we're knitting together all of our historic properties across the country to bring them together, make them easier for people to access. So here, Travelers Rest is connected and interwoven with properties all over the country, historic properties that other Dames in other states are preserving.
For the last 125 years, the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America in the state of Tennessee has been instrumental in saving important sites that inspire, surprise, and even change the way an individual sees or thinks about history and his or her place within that larger narrative.
I see history as a large detective story, and it is a situation where you are finding out something new. A lot of times it may be a diary or a letter or something that turns up that nobody knew it was there, or newspaper accounts from a different place. History is not a just finished story.
We are celebrating our 125th birthday this year as Dames here in Tennessee. As far as legacy, I want to see us to continue to tell those stories, to preserve the objects, to serve our patriots here, whether they are living or deceased. There are so many ways in which the Dames can have a lasting impact. And I think that you're going to continue to see really great things in our next 125 years.
Since its formation in 1896, the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America in the state of Tennessee has been at the forefront of preserving historic sites and creating educational opportunities for the public. Travelers Rest is just one of the many endeavors that has been the beneficiary of the Tennessee Dames and their visionary leadership. Over the last 125 years, the Tennessee Dames have created a legacy inspiring citizens of all ages to understand and honor our origins as a nation by promoting patriotism and respect for the people, places, and events critical to our understanding of Tennessee history.